So, I've wanted to do this video for a while. This is really just my philosophy. It's the way that I see the world, what I believe about it. I'm not really trying to invite debates in the comment section. I mean, if you have questions, if you have thoughts on it, you can share, but I'm not trying to argue with anybody. Because if I wanted to do that, I would do a live stream. But the purpose of this video is just to let you know what I believe, and I'm gonna try and structure it in a way that feels cohesive, because I just did another take where I spent about 12 minutes talking about my past and kind of my own journey into believing this, and then I had to cancel it and start over because I realized that I want to be a little bit more to the point and tell you exactly what I believe in. So, without further ado, this is my philosophy. Basically, I I think that everything is energy. So what I mean by that is that if you think about, well, let me get to that in a minute. Actually, I jumped ahead a little. I want to start with what is anything. So philosophy always starts with the question where you take a moment and you stop and you look around and you look at life and you say, what is this? Why is this? How is this? Why isn't it something else? Why not nothing? Why something? So those are the questions that you ask. Why something instead of nothing? Why anything? And why this? So, what are we? What is the universe? Is God real? What is God? If so, all of these questions that we have to ask, that unfortunately most people don't ask because it's a little too stressful, I think, to undertake those questions. They would prefer to believe that someone else already has it all figured out, and then they can just subscribe to that person's beliefs and not have to think for themselves. That's what most people do, I think. Um, and that's what religion is. But the problem with religion is that religion attempts to contain something that cannot be contained. It's infinity we're talking about here, you know? It's the nature of infinity cannot be put in a bottle. You can't write that in a book and end the chapter. That's contrary to what infinity is. So I think people really jump to conclusions, and I think people who believe in science don't understand that science is really just a means to an end. It's not a religion itself. Um, and religion is also a means to an end. It's a way of controlling people. If you look at the definition of religion and you look at the definition of a cult, they're effectively the same thing, slightly different wording. A religion is basically a socially acceptable version of a cult. And a cult is designed to control people, control the way people think, and get them to just be obedient and not really think for themselves. And I think people need to be willing to ask the questions that I proposed at the beginning. Just why all of this? So let's dive into that. First of all, I think we have to think about what nothing is, because if you have something, you look around at all of this and it's like, okay, well, clearly this is something, but then what is nothing? Is there such thing as nothing? Does it not exist? And obviously, it doesn't exist because it's nothing. But I think the concept of nothing exists only by default, because it kind of has to. If there is something, then there must also be nothing. Because I think I've realized, I've noticed that everything has an opposite, and I haven't seen an exception to this rule. Literally everything has an opposite. If you think in terms of energy, and that's what everything is made of. So that is also supported by science. If you look at the scientific research behind energy, you'll find that it's literally everywhere. It's behind everything in existence. So you could say energy is like the source of existence itself. So what is it? What is energy? Well, it's not nothing. It to me is like by the same logic that nothing exists by default. Excuse me. Um, had a silent burp. I also feel like energy or everything exists by default as well. It just it just is. And it's everything. It's not like it's some things, because that would be confusing. You would say, "Well, why is it this and not that?" But the answer is it's everything. I think we need to understand that time and space are both an illusion. There's no such thing, because time is infinite. There's no origin to time. It's not like you can go back in time and then find a beginning. If you keep going back in time, you're just going to keep going back in time. You're never going to hit the beginning and be like, whoa, I made it to the start of things. And if you go to the end, you're never going to reach the end either, because what would that even mean? That means it's not real. Because it's infinite, it kind of goes out of existence. There's an example in a movie called Lucy, where she is kind of breaking down some philosophical things like this. And one of my favorite scenes in that movie, she shows an image of a car speeding, and it's just a replaying image of a car driving on a screen. And she speeds the image up times infinity, and the car is gone. So when you speed something up infinitely, it disappears. It stops existing. So there really is no time. There's nothing but time. Therefore, time is an illusion. You're never going to run out of it, so it doesn't exist. It's just a thing that we invented to keep track of things and be organized, because we have time. We, as human beings having a human experience, are limited in our time to get it done. So, time objectively is what I'm saying is not real, but we have a use for the concept of it. So space is also not real, because of the same reason. It's infinite. You cannot reach the edge of it. No matter where you go, you're always going to be somewhere. You're never going to find the outside of existence and be like, oh, hey, look, I made it outside of existence, guys. I did it. I'm in nothing now. No, if you're there, you're somewhere. Everywhere you go, there you are. So space is infinite too, by that logic. And it doesn't matter if you go up or down or left or right or diagonal or whichever way you want to go, you're never going to reach the end. But again, by that same logic, we are on a sphere. We're on a planet. And that planet does have a limit. You can't just keep going. Eventually you'll get back to where you started, because it's a circle. And that also should leave you to wonder, what are we actually supposed to be doing? It's not like we're supposed to get from A to B. It's not like physical movement is going to be the correct way to live life. Because if that's the way you're thinking, you're just going to keep going in circles. The planet is literally a ball. It's a sphere. You're never going to see like an A to B point. You just run around and you're going in circles, and there's no actual goal. And if you think in terms of the universe, the same thing is true. You could spend an infinite amount of time going in any direction, and you're never gonna get to where you're trying to go. So clearly, physical movement is not connected to our growth. So we are able to move forward on a different dimension. And that's why I don't think of time and space as being real. They're just kind of concepts that we've invented to help ourselves understand things. But in reality, time and space are an illusion. So the only thing that's real is energy. And that is basically what everything is made of and what fuels us. So if you think about like the idea that you can die, and then what happens when you die, that's a huge question. That's like the main philosophical question I think that people ask. What happens when we die? It depends on what you believe. Some people want to say that we as human beings are completely material, a materialist perspective. This suggests that we are basically just advanced robots, and that we are made up of matter and material, and everything we do, everything we think, everything we are is just made up of something else that already existed. And in that same way of thinking, there's no such thing as free will. There's no you. There's no real you. Even you are an illusion. You're not real by that logic. You're just a robot who is so advanced and so complex that you think you're real. But that begs the question then, what is consciousness in the first place? Why do I think I'm real? Why do I have, all of these emotions, and why do I feel like I have free will? Why do I feel like I could do something that absolutely nothing and no one in the universe could have anticipated? That I can just change my mind on a whim and do things that I didn't even know I was going to do? Why does it feel like my actions aren't just reactions to things that are outside of my control, but rather that there is some me in there that is deciding them? And things that I can't even attribute to my past. I used to believe in, like, the materialist theory. I used to think, I think it's called determinism, that everything that you do is a result of genetic factors, your body, and everything that's made up in your body, your brain, all of it is from chemicals and things that you got from your parents and what they got from other people, and blah blah blah. Just infinite, keeps going up. And and then the universe and all these other things going on, they also play a factor in your decision making. But there is no real you. You're not actually doing anything because you don't really exist. That was what I believed. And it made sense at the time, but I had to think about it and realize that there is a me, because I do have free will. I'm convinced that I have free will because I know that I've been able to do things that I cannot trace back to anything other than just my consciousness, my ability to make decisions just for me. And I've been put on the path. I have the genetic I've had genetic reasons and circumstantial reasons to make decisions that I didn't end up making because I just believed that they were wrong. And I didn't want to do it. And I could have. And I might have almost, but I didn't. And that's why I believe in free will. One of many reasons I believe in free will, but I'll get to that in a minute. What I'm talking about right now is whether or not we have a soul. And I think that is the question of whether or not we have free will. So the fact that I believe we have free will means I also have to believe that we have a soul, that we, have that our consciousness is a soul, that it's, if you want to call it that, that it's this awareness, this ability to do things that are only us, that cannot be traced back to something that's out of our control, that it's just you did that just because you're you. And that's what a soul is to me. So by that logic, the whole materialist theory that we're just robots doesn't exactly work. So that would suggest that there might be something more than just this body, that you could say that we're spiritual beings having a human experience rather than just a human experience with no spiritual aspect of it. When you understand that everything is kind of an illusion, you begin to question things that you thought were certain about the material world, because you realize that the material world is in itself just not even real. It's just all kind of whatever you make of it. And the only thing that's real is us, is our consciousness. So if you look into consciousness scientifically, you'll find that there isn't really a concrete answer. Scientists have been dumbfounded by the concept of consciousness for a long time, and the study of it is considered advanced science because it's really that complex. People don't know what consciousness is because they're not opening their minds to spirituality. And I think spirituality is basically just understanding that anything is possible and everything is energy. And if you want to say that that it goes against things that have been scientifically proven, what exactly is it going against? Because I haven't seen any evidence in my life to suggest that the material world is all that exists. I know for a fact that there's more going on because I've experienced things in my own head where I can have thoughts and I go to like a different dimension. What is a dream? That's another thing that nobody talks about. What happens when you fall asleep and your brain plays these movies? Science doesn't really know. Sometimes your dreams predict the future. Sometimes you have a dream about what your day is going to be, and then that exact same thing happens in the dream. Sometimes you have a dream and you like about a person that you haven't met, and then you meet that person. There are all these things that happen when we're sleeping, and sometimes your dreams don't mean anything. They're not that complicated, but they're still something that you feel like you are transcending when you experience it. And I think to suggest that the material world is all that's real suggests that nothing matters because it's all just decaying anyway. We're all just slowly dying, and by the time we're dead, our whole life will have been completely meaningless because we will no longer even exist to care about what we did. And you could say, well, you can still care about other people because other people will still be alive, but they're also slowly dying by that logic. And wouldn't it be doing them a favor to put them out of their misery? Because you're not going to convince me that people are happy. I think the general population is pretty miserable because life is hard. There's no getting around that. Life is a big fat pain in the butt. And every step you take, no matter where you are in the world, it's a struggle. Struggling to make money, to afford to live, the struggle just to get food. And you need food to live because our bodies, they say you are what you eat. They mean that literally. If you are not consuming anything, then there is nothing for you to be anymore. It'll take about 2 weeks and you'll just be gone. And we also run on water. There's a lot of water going on here. Why do you think we look so fluid? Our movements and our face and everything. It's water. We're made of mostly water, and we can only go 3 days without water. So we need to be consuming things, and that's exhausting to keep up with. To know that you have to constantly be putting all this stuff into your body, it's a lot of work. And they don't make it easy for you. Water isn't just easily accessible for absolutely anyone. You have to work for it. You have to either find it, and then you have to make sure it's drinkable. And then if you're going to pay for it, you have to have a job. You have to be able to make money, because if you steal, there's consequences for that too. No matter how you look at it, life is hard. So, yeah, I think that is a fact that is often overlooked. People act like life is this wonderful gift, but life is just a pain in the butt. And if you incorporate a spiritual aspect, you can find meaning to it. But if you're only thinking materialist, I really am confused why you haven't killed yourself. I think the reason that people don't do that is because deep down, no matter what we believe cognitively, part of us just knows that there's something more, that we are not here just to die. We didn't just get created so that we could just stop existing. We're here because we have things to do. And my personal belief is that everything in the universe is filled with energy of different kinds. So let me explain this. I've said that energy is everything, but I think it's also true that some energy can be different from others. For example, you could walk into a room of people who are sobbing and screaming and crying and throwing things at each other, people who are having the worst day of their lives, and you would read that energy and say that feels frightening. You want to get away from that kind of angry, toxic energy, people throwing things at each other. You could also walk into a room of people being passive-aggressive, making comments, just saying little things just to piss you off a little bit. That is like an energetic attack, and you feel it. They didn't hit you. They didn't touch you. They just said some words, and somehow you felt attacked. That's because they threw an energetic sword at you, and you felt it hit you. Um, and on the same token, if you are in a room with people who are authentic and genuine and non-judgmental, completely non-judgmental, just, you know, focused on um, just being and enjoying themselves and being kind and empathetic and compassionate, then you're going to notice the difference. You're going to prefer that room. You're going to want to be in a room with those people as opposed to a room with angry, negative people. And that's because energy is different. It's not all the same. Energy isn't just energy. Energy can be on different frequencies. You could say it's a high frequency or a low frequency. You know, the angry people would be a low frequency, and the happy people would be a high frequency, and that would be measured by truth. I like to think of it as truth and fiction, or love and fear. That's another one. Some people don't really believe the whole love and fear theory, that those are the only two emotions we really have, that everything else we do comes from one of those two places. But I have reason to believe that that is the case, because the more I've thought about it, I realized everything that you do really can be traced back to love or fear. That you were either in one of those states when you did something. So if we take the moment to stop and ask ourselves, am I about to do something? Is this coming from a place of love or a place of fear? You have to ask yourself what that actually means. So to break it down, and this is a bigger topic, but simply, if you make a decision coming from a place of fear, um, what you're doing is you're trying to control the situation. You're coming from a place of ego, where you're thinking about yourself, and you are attempting to manipulate. Excuse me, I keep burping. You're attempting to manipulate something, um, versus coming at it from a place of love, where you don't feel the need to control things. You already have a sense of faith in truth, in the universe, to know that you are connected to everything that exists, that everything in existence is all the same thing, and that you're part of that, and therefore you're safe. You are kind of immortal by that logic, and you're content. You don't feel the need. You're not needy. You're not trying to control anything. You're just saying, what can I give now? How can I use um, this divine love that I have to give it to other people? So if you think of that, that's, to me, that's what God is. God is at the top of the energy frequency. God is truth. God is this pure sense of love. And I think of this feeling of when a mother gives birth and looks at her baby and just is overcome by a sense of love, where you are not judging that baby. You don't want to hurt the baby. You're not afraid. You're just focused on loving the thing that you just brought into the world, and you want to protect it and take care of it. And you want that baby to believe that it is loved and taken care of, and safe. Because I think if you really let everything else go, all the fear, all the drama, all the stuff that we think about every day that we think matters, if you really just let all of that go and ask yourself, what do I really want? What ultimately is my goal? Not to get a good house, to get a good job, to get a good relationship, whatever you want, whatever you tell yourself you want. Why do you want those things? What is at the root of it all? What do you really want above all else? And I think what we would find if we asked ourselves that is that we want to be loved. We want to believe that we are unconditionally loved. Not that we're loved conditionally, that if we do the wrong thing, someone will just stop loving us. And I think we are often raised in environments that do feel conditional, and we don't feel like we've earned that unconditional love. So we spend our lives trying to be worthy of it, and we're very hard on ourselves, very judgmental of ourselves, and therefore very judgmental of others. Even if we don't realize it, we've become very cynical because of this, and and for what purpose? I mean, what are you hoping to accomplish by being judgmental, by being cynical? It really is just saying that you don't feel like you're good enough as you are. And if you believed that you were loved unconditionally, I think a mother is only channeling an energy. That's what it is. She is channeling this pure, like, top of the energy frequency um, energy that is just there whenever you want to tap into it. And she's able to channel it because, um, for the same reason that you would say, like, God created the universe, a mother created you. So she is being a creator, she's being a God. So of course she's tapping into that God energy of being this pure, unconditionally loving force. And you have to learn that human beings are not stable. Humans are basically just vessels, and we're vessels of energy. And that energy is um, very easy to manipulate. You can just, it can go from dark to light, high to low, however you want to break it down. And all you really have to do is let go of control for a minute, and you'll find that there are all sorts of energies around you, whether it be a person trying to control you, or some other type of energy that maybe isn't a person. Maybe it's just free floating energy, intelligent energy that doesn't have a physical form that you can recognize. And it's there, and it's trying to get in your head and trying to control you and get you to do and say and feel things that are contrary to objective truth. And that's what I think God is. Like I said, God is truth. God is just objective truth. And what is that truth? The truth is that everything is everything. Everything is the same thing. It's all connected. And there's no reason for the same thing to turn on itself. For two people that are cut from the same cloth to hate and attack each other. That serves no real purpose. It doesn't make any sense. It makes much more sense for everything to be connected and to love each other. So if you think of humans as just part of the universe and like we're all brothers and sisters, it's easier to have compassion and love at the forefront. To think that we should all be willing to be kind to each other and try and keep that up there instead of letting that get tossed to the wayside. And the darker energies of the universe are completely in contrast with that truth. They are based on fear and manipulation, and that's where the ego comes in, because ego is basically just not God. It's not truth. Ego isn't love. Ego is just your sense of identity. And that is what the dark will try to attack. It'll go in and it'll make you feel like you need to do certain things. It'll play on your fears. Why does it do this? For the same reason that everything exists, just by default. If there is light, then there must also be dark. And if there is truth, there must also be fiction. So, it's sort of like there's just this default energy that is the polar opposite of God, the polar opposite of love and light, and it's this darkness that basically just exists in a state of chaos. And it's not governed by reason, it's not governed by truth, it's not governed by logic, and it's not governed by love. It's just complete fear. And the problem is that all energy needs love. It needs to be fed. And that love that I keep referring to is the food source. It's energy itself. And the dark has separated from that truth and decided that it doesn't need love. It doesn't need to be connected to everything. But the truth is that it is, whether it likes it or not. And because it's not living in that reality, basically it's delusional, um, it is starving because it's not getting that food source. So, because it's starving, that's why it's acting crazy. It needs the energy, it needs food. So, what it does is it takes it from people who are feeding that good energy, from people who are, tapped into the truth. It's going to try and steal that from you and make you um not believe it, and then you'll feel drained. You'll feel like you don't know who you are anymore. And that is why, as a human being, you have to be constantly on guard and make sure that you are making your own decisions and that you're not being manipulated by dark energy. So, really, just have a not today, Satan attitude if you can. Just shoo it out. Say, no, I don't have any room for that. It's nonsense. Any thoughts that are suggesting that you are not good enough or that somebody else is trying to hurt you. I think there are a lot of ways that we can fall victim to ego. Um, I think jealousy is one of them. If you find yourself wishing that you looked like someone else and you envy somebody else, you feel like you need to be the best. In the room, you need to have the coolest outfit or have the best scores on your test or whatever it is. You want to be the best. You've got this sense of superiority, or desired superiority. Where is that really coming from? Why do you feel that you need that? And why is it so desperate to you that you'd go dark if you didn't get it? If you suddenly couldn't get that, you would start cheating to get it. You'd get really desperate and you'd be willing to do things that are hurtful to other people, because every action has a reaction. Nothing is without consequence. Stealing hurts people because when you take something, you're taking it from someone, and that person didn't want to give it to you. You didn't earn it. And they had it for a reason. It wasn't yours to take, but you took it anyway because you felt that it was okay to break that rule that you knew, you were well aware why it existed. And you broke it anyway because you were acting out of fear. You were desperate. So ask yourself why. Why are you reacting in such a way? So I think when we listen to our emotions are often not the truth. Our emotions are very easy for the dark to manipulate. So it's good to look at your emotions in a non-judgmental way. To just look at it and say, this is what I'm feeling. Okay. But how does that actually play a role in what I want to do? And usually the answer is it doesn't. We have to learn to ignore our emotions because they're not actually helping us as much as we have been taught that they are. Um, they're really, if anything, just holding us back. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have emotions. That's not to say that emotions are a bad thing. It's just that we pay too much attention to them. We need to know how to utilize our emotions properly. We are emotional beings. There's no getting around that. There's emotion everywhere in a lot of our decisions, but they should not be the driving force behind everything that we do. So if you can ignore your emotions and not judge them, I think people are too harsh. They always think that they have to feel a certain way or that they have to do a certain thing. And when do you ever take a moment to just pause and step out of your body and just examine what's going on? And remember that you are deserving of love at all times and that you are unconditionally loved. Maybe not by a human being, because humans are way too easily manipulated. Humans aren't always in control of themselves. But that energy, that God energy that your mother might have at one point been channeling, unfortunately, not all parents do this, even though they all really should. But, to all the dumpster babies out there, not that that's something to joke about, but just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Um, if you think about like the kind of unconditional love that your mother should have been channeling, um, you have to realize that that is something that anyone can channel, and you can tap into that anytime you want because it's always there for you. You are unconditionally loved, and anyone can love you to that degree. They just have to be willing to get their ego out of the way. And unfortunately, most people don't do that. So most people don't feel loved because they aren't willing to love themselves, and they aren't willing to see that as an option. They're just very they're they're fearful. That's really all it comes down to. So, this has turned into a little bit more of a um me teaching people what I believe rather than telling people about the way I see the world. But I mean, this is still how I see the world. I feel like I might have skipped some steps. I mean, I don't know. Did I have I confused you? You can leave a comment and let me know if I'm making sense or not. But yeah, so anyway, I'm going to try and wrap this up, and I want to touch on some of the things that I think I might have missed. So, if it felt like I jumped around talking about spirituality, the first thing that I want to clarify, and I don't remember if I said this because I know I mentioned that I did a 12-minute take. I don't remember if I said this in this video or in that take, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Religion is basically a cult. And if you are thinking because someone else told you to think that way, you come into the world, you should come into the world and wonder what is going on. What is all this? Why is all this? But instead you come into the world and you are told what it is by adults who want you to believe that they know what they're talking about, but in reality they don't know what they're doing. They don't know any more than you do. Because when they got here, they were just as confused, and the people who taught them were just as confused, and it's just a never-ending chain of people who were confused when they got here. And where did they learn from? They learned from the other confused people. Nobody really knows anything. Some people claim that they've had direct experiences with God, and some people claim that they have seen proof of life after death, but it's still for you to decide. And my journey of figuring out about life after death really came down to a more of an interest in just understanding existence itself, because I always had this little existential crisis ever since I was like a toddler, where I would think, what was it like before I was born? What is existence, and what does it feel like to not exist? And I remember asking my grandma that when I was like 3, and she was like, what? She didn't even have an answer, because nobody knows what it feels like to not exist. Nobody can picture that. It's like trying to imagine what nothing looks like. It's nothing, so you're not going to picture anything. It's a tough concept to grasp, I think. And, unfortunately, people just aren't that interested in thinking about that kind of stuff. But it's there, and it is absolutely worth thinking about, in my opinion. So, if you ever want to learn more about this, I can do a live stream and a Q&A. For clarification, I do believe in psychic and mediumship, psychic and mediumistic abilities. I said psychic and mediumship. I meant like psychic and mediumistic. Psychic mediumship is more like what you would call it. I do believe in that because not only does it just make sense given my understanding of existence, because really anything can exist, and I'm sure there are plenty of energies that aren't necessarily wearing this meat suit. And I've also had some experiences in communication with those energies. I took a course that basically taught me to be a psychic medium last year, and I've given plenty of psychic readings where I was able to channel people's relatives. I was able to give them healing messages and tell them exactly what they needed to hear. And when I'm doing it, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not thinking, what can I tell this person that they're going to want to hear? I'm just opening myself up and setting my intention to make sure that I'm only channeling positive and healing messages that are coming from the light for their highest and best interest. And then I just say it. I just allow myself to see, what it's shown to me sometimes as an image in my head. Sometimes a thought pops into my head. Sometimes I write something down. But when you start talking, it just kind of flows. It's almost like spirit just takes over and just starts telling. You just start talking. You don't even know what you're saying. But for me, it's often seeing images in my head, and I have an example of just recently I had someone book a reading with me because, and this kind of threw me off because I don't like to deal with serious situations like this. She lost her dog and she wanted to know if the dog was okay, if she was going to find it. And ideally, what I would like to be able to do is get an image of where the dog is and tell the person how to find it. But the first thing that I was getting was that the dog was hit by a car. And that was like not easy to see that, because then I started doubting it and I started wondering, you know, did this actually happen? If I tell that person, are they going to stop looking? And maybe they should be, because what if I'm wrong? You know, you start doubting yourself sometimes when the stakes are that high. And that's because it doesn't feel that different. What I believe is that everyone is a psychic medium. I don't think that it's a gift. I think that is a huge rumor that some people have a special ability to channel this stuff. I think it's something that everyone can do, because that's what we are. We're channels, and we're always open, and we have to learn discernment between the dark and the light. But we're always open, and we have to realize that we're getting this information every day, whether we realize it or not. We use our abilities every day, and we just don't call it that. So when you're giving a psychic reading, it's not going to feel as weird as you would think. That's what I have noticed. But I do still surprise myself. You know, there was one of my favorite examples of a reading. I was able to describe, and it's not conversational. You know, they're not telling me anything. I literally just get on a call with a stranger. All I have is their name, and I don't have time to look them up either, because sometimes they can book with me like 2 minutes in advance because I'm on a call center. But I get their name and that's it, and then I just get their number and I call them, and you know, they don't have to say anything. I just tell them what I'm getting, and oftentimes not oftentimes, almost 100% of the time, it is exactly what they needed to hear. It's like spot on. And my favorite example of this was a reading where I just was getting one thing after another. I talked about this woman feeling pain in her left leg, which was accurate. She told me at the end, feeling, I saw a random image of the Wicked Witch of the West, and she told me she used to have nightmares as a kid about the Wicked Witch of the West. I saw her tap dancing. She said she used to tap when she was little, and not a lot of people know that. What else? I saw her grandfather, and I said that he might have referred to her as a fish, and he used to watch her swim in the summertime. All of that was accurate. He called her a fish and everything. There was a grandma who taught her how to ride a bike, and I had this image of this grandmother woman watching her ride a bike as a kid. You know, all of this stuff coming through, that I just was seeing images in my mind, and I wasn't questioning them, I wasn't judging them, I wasn't stopping myself. I was just allowing it to flow and talking about it. And you know, at the end, when she broke it all down and told me what made sense to her and what didn't make sense to her, it was like 9 out of 10 things I said made sense. I think there was one thing I said that she couldn't figure out, but it was insane that, like, you know, it was that spot on. And I even mentioned a coworker that just came up out of nowhere. Just all of a sudden in the reading, I just mentioned that she had a coworker who was putting her down all the time and making her feel bad about herself. But I said, don't trust it. In reality, she's actually jealous of you, and she feels inferior to you, and she's trying to make you doubt yourself. And she told me that she does have a coworker, a female coworker, like I said, who does that. And she tries to put her down and all that stuff. She's like she even tells me that I could be better at sucking than you. You know, like, just, so I was like shocked when she was telling me all this afterwards, because it's so weird that someone is telling me about something that I already knew somehow, and I don't know how I knew it. I just was allowing it to come out of me. And then a few months later, that same person booked with me, and I knew I recognized the name, but I couldn't remember where I had seen it before. Um, and she booked with me, and I called her. She was one of the ones that booked with like 2 minutes in advance. And I called her, and I asked her if she had any questions or if she just wanted me to tell her what I was getting. And she told me to just tell her what I was getting. And the first thing I saw was a snake moving through the grass, coming to bite her ankle. And I didn't let her tell me what that meant. I said, okay, let me break this down, go in and ask what that means. And I started seeing like a circle of people, and I was like, okay, this is someone in her circle, someone she knows, who's being a snake. And I was like, where is this? And I got work, and I was like, okay, this is a work environment. And I described her. I was like, I'm seeing like shoulder length, reddish brown hair, green eyes, and this female who is just being a snake, I guess. And I got this really specific message, just popped into my head, said, don't buy it. So I just said that unfiltered. And then I asked her if that was helpful, and she said that she does have a coworker who has green eyes and reddish brown hair, and she said she thinks the "don't buy it" message is that she's been acting like she's changed and trying to say that she's a better person now. And what's crazy is that I didn't even realize this was the same person that I had talked to about a bad coworker from a few months ago until the next morning. I woke up and I was like, oh my god, I think the same coworker even came up in that last reading. And I freaked myself out because I didn't realize that that was her at all. And all the details were the same. I think the image of the coworker that popped into my head looked exactly the same. So that, it's just crazy. And I also, in that reading, just randomly saw an image of a little boy dressed as Dracula, and she told me that her son went as Dracula for Halloween that year. So I was like, you know, it's freaky. It really is. There's no other way to describe it. But I do believe anyone can do it. Um, and that is one of the many reasons why I believe that there's more going on than just materialism. But aside from that, I think it just makes sense. I think the reason people have a resistance to spirituality is because they think of it as magical thinking. They think of it as like, oh, but that suggests that it's supernatural and that it isn't, that it's something beyond what's physical and tangible. But it is. It's real. It's just as real as anything because nothing is real. I mean, I think I broke that down. So yeah, it's all just kind of an illusion, but there's energy. So once you start thinking that way, everything starts to make more sense, and things start to feel less meaningless. You start to notice a lot more things. When you think in terms of energy, you're going to have a much better sense of boundaries and self-respect, and it's going to be much easier for you to tell um, if someone is bullshitting you, because energy doesn't lie. People can be dishonest, but energy is always telling the truth. And I have a personal example. I've had some comments these past couple days, this past couple of weeks, on a controversial video that I made, and a lot of the comments are just covered with toxic negative energy. They're literally just attacks, and they're disguised. If you look at it at face value and you read the comment and just take it for what it is on a surface level, it's just educational. That's all it is. It's not like they're actually attacking me, but somehow the energy of it feels like an attack. And if you really ask yourself why that is, you can look at it again and realize that it was intended to be an attack when it was written. That was the emotion behind it. So that was the energy that was channeled into it. It was meant as an attack. And you could call that a psychic attack, because, it's not physical. So it's you always have a right to defend yourself. And that's one of the things that I've been really trying to explain to people recently. So I just wanted to mention it in this video since it's part of my philosophy. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you found this interesting. I hope it got you thinking, or at least just helps you learn more about me. If you're subscribed to me, you know a little more about who you're subscribed to. And hopefully I cannot stop burping. I'm a burper. That's one of the things you're gonna notice if you're gonna watch more of my videos. I very rarely don't burp. So yeah, hopefully I can continue to make videos, and I want to I want to just share my thoughts on this channel. And I want to make another channel that's more focused on personal healing. Like, this will be my for me channel, and the other one will be for you, kind of. So I'm going to have like therapy type content on that channel, educational, like how to get out of situations and what to think about this and that. But, and it's all going to be based on my experience, because I don't want to pretend to know more than I do. And I think learning from experience is the best way to learn. So this channel will just be sharing my thoughts, and it'll be more like a little bit more philosophical and political on this channel, because that's kind of what's on my mind most of the time. But you know, I also have the healing side and just wanting to put some good out into the world, and that's what my other channel will be exclusively for. So I'll let you know when I make that. All my channels will be in my channels tab, so try to make myself easy to find. Like I said, I'm not trying to have a debate in the comments, but I'm open to hearing questions, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this either way. So definitely leave a comment, and thank you so much for watching.